Greetings. By virtue of your presence watching this video today, I want you to know that we consider you to be an extended member of our family at Unity in Linwood. We believe that you are an individualized expression of that one creative impetus which stands behind all life, and as such we celebrate the uniqueness which you are, and we celebrate our unity with you. We are glad you're with us.
Oh, since 1995, James Twyman, known as the Peace Troubadour, has traveled the world offering what he calls his peace concerts in the most war-torn corners of our planet. In 1998, more than 35,000 people huddled together in tents behind barbed wire fences at a refugee camp on the border of Kosovo and Macedonia, as James and tens of thousands of people around the world joined their voices, joined their hearts. It was during that experience that James asked to be shown a vehicle by which his prayers would be made tangible. From the belovedcommunity.org, I quote, "It's one thing to pray and to feel the power of our prayers, but wouldn't it be wonderful if we could actually see them, feel them, touch them?" Over the months which followed that request, hundreds of thousands of people from more than 50 countries sent pieces of fabric through the U.S. mail to Joshua Tree, California. And with the assistance of countless volunteers, the cloth of many colors was born. Well, in September of 2000, the nearly 1 mile long quilt was presented at the United Nations building in New York during a special ceremony. One day later, it was literally wrapped around the base of the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C., and 2 days later, it was presented during a special ceremony at the Pentagon. It was during one 15-minute concert that the massive quilt was positioned in the shape of a giant peace sign on the west lawn of the Capitol. Well, the next day, James and his people found themselves answering to Capitol Police for the grass which had been covered by the giant quilt had been understandably altered by the event. Well, James and his people convinced the authorities that nothing beyond the short concert had occurred on the grass. And so it was that for about 2 weeks, evidence of the concert endured on the west lawn of the Capitol. That evidence was described as grass in the shape of a giant peace symbol. Not grass which had become trampled and brown, however, but grass which had grown taller, grass which had grown greener than that which surrounded it. I predict that you will share the same sense of gratitude, the same sense of honor, the same sense of responsibility that I felt last week when James Twyman spontaneously donated a portion of that quilt to Unity in Linwood. How appropriate it is that we present this to you on the Sunday preceding the Feast of St. Francis, with whose name the following words have for so long been closely associated.
Ad Sachem. Jugad Sachem. Ave Sachem. Nanaka Hosi Be Sachem. Ad such, Jugad such, Hebisach, Nanakahosi Besach. Adasach, Jugadasach, Hebisach, Nanakahosi Besach. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there's despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, it is in dying that we are born into eternal life. Ada sacha, juga ada sacha. Hebesacha, God is true throughout the ages. Nanakahosi Besacha, just the light that shines within you. Adasach, Jugadasach, Hebesach, Nanakahosi Besach. Adasach, Jugadasach, Hebesach, Nanakahosi Besach. Adasacha, Jugadasach. Hebesacha, Nanakahosi Besacha.
There you go. How about that? If you would like to become a member of this evolving divine idea we call Unity in Linwood, you are here at the right time. Today is your day. Please join me following this service in my office for an orientation we call the Basics of Unity. There will be a reception in your honor this Friday evening at 7 o'clock p.m. Meet your Board of Trustees, your staff, key leaders, and then next Sunday you will be welcomed into full membership in a very safe and fun ritual. The annual membership meeting, all are welcome. All are welcome to come explore and celebrate the position and the accomplishments of this spiritual community. It is on Sunday, October 15th, following this service. Every service has an ambassador. This person's role is to assist and to support you in your exploration and discovery of this evolving divine idea we call unity in Linwood. And we have a substitute ambassador today. Am I correct? If you have a question about who we are, about what we teach, what we believe, about what is available to you, you are welcome to engage Shelley Oberman in conversation. Will you wave to these kind people, please? Shelley. Practical spirituality, welcoming community, short in word, but long in spirit, don't you think? Every week I like to support this with one of the 6 bullet points which we developed in conversation with your Board of Trustees. Take a deep breath. Today's reads as follows. We offer a metaphysical teaching which encourages regular spiritual practice, including prayer, meditation, affirmation, denial, service, and study. Fair enough? Our words of invocation were used by Unity co-founder Mr. Charles Fillmore. They read as follows. I am. I am now. I am now immersed in pure being. I am now in the presence of pure being. It's the first mistake I've ever made. And immersed in the Holy Spirit of life, love, and wisdom. I acknowledge your presence and your power. O blessed Spirit. Now in your divine wisdom, remove my mortal limitations. And from your pure substance of love, bring into manifestation my world, according to your perfect law. I have to tell you, it's one of my least favorite questions. And it's not because I'm embarrassed or ashamed of what I do for a living. In fact, I happen to believe that it's only when the religious leaders of the world learn to get along that a sustainable peace among the people of earth will become possible. And you would be correct to infer a shadow side to such a bold hypothesis, and it goes something like this. If we could but peel away the layers which comprise non-peace, it's far too often that we find something of a religious distortion at the center. So in truth, I happen to believe my job's a pretty important one. Nonetheless, it remains one of my least favorite questions. It always happens at business events, but that's no big deal. Milling about is expected of one at a business event. At the drive-through window at Starbucks, however, it's a little more complicated. I often chat with some imaginary friend who lives in an exotic land while I wait for my order. And why are my beloved baristas of bliss so clearly being strong-armed into making small talk before morning coffee anyway? Why, it was on a Sunday morning, not unlike this one, probably around 7 o'clock a.m., when the barista asked me, dressed in an ensemble of no small amount of elegant inconvenience, about my plans for the day. I told her I was on my way to a day of skydiving, thinking that this would elicit some sort of fun response. But no, she was completely unfazed by my plans to hurtle through the air at maximum velocity, sporting a bow tie and a wool jacket. Have a nice day skydiving, she... I'm no longer allowed to talk to the baristas. But beyond business events and at drive-through windows is the airplane. It's the airplane. For when the inevitable question arises, you can't answer and just move on to the next person at the appetizer table. You can't answer and just drive away with a latte. You're stuck. And the question is, so what do you do? What do you do? And while I'm tempted to say, well, I'm in sales, or I'm in education, or I'm in the assurance business, I realize that such tactics will just delay that awkward moment when the word minister enters the conversation. For you see, when the word minister enters the conversation, people tend to assume that I employ a set of exclusions, at least roughly similar to theirs. So when the word minister enters the conversation, the operative paradigm and the pursuit usually becomes some variation of, I wonder if the people you leave out are the same people I leave out. So don't misunderstand. I'm extremely proud of what I do for a living. And I'm extremely proud to do it with you and to do it with Unity in Linwood. But in the world of normative religion, the word minister has come to represent a model which is so completely counter to what I do that it can make for very long flights. For to me, to be a minister is to operate from a paradigm driven by some variation of the question, just how many people can I include here? So yes, the truth of the matter is, I tend to avoid it. And yet I find myself thinking that to avoid every word which has been used to limit, every word which has been used to exclude, every word which has been used to hurt, is to give away a lot of power. So welcome to a series. I've called it Unity Talk. For the next 4 weeks, we will explore some of these words from a unity perspective. Words which have been used to limit, words which have been used to exclude, words which have been used to hurt. Perhaps you'll leave this series with a more peaceful or a more beneficial relationship with a word. Maybe you'll even reclaim an old word as a new friend. Maybe on the way home, someone will say, "What do you do?" And I'll say, "You know what? I'm a minister." So for those who would avoid words such as God and Christianity, Jesus and Christ, heaven and hell, well, hold on to your purses and glue down those hair pieces. You're in for a bumpy ride. We begin with prayer. And yes, even the word prayer has uncomfortable history for some. So take a deep breath. Let's begin with a few quotes, shall we? It was Dr. Emily Cady who wrote, "There is no absence of life, substance, or intelligence anywhere." Unity co-founder Mr. Fillmore said the same thing this way: divine mind has ideas of substance as unlimited and everywhere present, equally available to all. Dr. Cady, we don't have to beseech God any more than we have to beseech the sun to shine. No more can God help pouring into us unlimited wisdom, life, power, because to give is a law of God's being. I have to wonder if Elizabeth Barrett Browning held the same sentiment, and I quote, she wrote, "Earth's crammed with heaven, and every common bush afire with God. But only he who sees takes off his shoes, the rest just keep picking blackberries." So you do not change God's attitude toward you one iota by either importuning or affirming. You only change your attitude toward God. Reading on, the fact is, each one looking at the same world sees according to the size of the aperture through which he is looking, and he limits the world to just his own circumscribed view of it. Need a minute with that? Mr. Fillmore, the only lack, then, is in our own lack of appropriation. It's the law of spirit that we must be that which we would draw to us. If we would draw to us love, we must become love. If we would draw to us peace, we must become. If we want harmony in our environment, we must establish it within ourselves. There are so many layers to this word, to this prayer, that for our purposes today, I had to make some choices. So for our purposes today, I would like to refer to prayer as a divine argument of sorts. Stay with me. I'd like to present prayer as a divine argument between you and yourself about the nature of infinity. I'd like to present prayer as something of a divine argument between you and yourself, if I were moving in more traditional circles, about just how big your God is. You see, your divine argument doesn't change God per se. Your divine argument changes you. For as you embody a bigger idea of all that God is, as you embody a bigger idea of life, of love, of wisdom, you avail yourself to all that represents that bigger idea in your world. You see, I have to believe that one of the biggest issues with prayer, as it's traditionally understood and practiced, is that people want their outer worlds to change, but they don't want their inner worlds to change. We want to kneel at our bedsides and bless our many loved ones and rattle off the details of our endless wish lists to Santa God. But we want to continue living in the same old inner patterns. We want to continue living in the same old outer patterns during the remaining 23 hours and 5 minutes of the same day. We want to kneel at the bedside and pray for supply, only to attend the family reunion and argue for lack. We want to kneel at the bedside and pray for love, only to meet a date and argue for inadequacy. We want to kneel at the bedside and pray for creative self-expression, only to drive to the office and argue for the same stale status quo. I have to believe the sage had it right when he or she said, I really don't know who said it, you know, if nothing changes. In the end, it might be said that you pray hard for what you perceive yourself to want, but you pray harder for what you perceive yourself to be. And the spiritually wise always seek to align those two worlds. This seems to be the central encouragement of Mrs. Fillmore. And I quote, "If we don't keep thinking in accord with the prayers we've made, we don't get results." End quote. Perhaps she summarized the passage best in her closing when she said, and I do paraphrase, "If you're willing to talk the talk, well, baby, you better be willing to walk the walk." Myrtle Fillmore. It's been written that each of us is always praying. Each of us is always offering his or her thought, his or her consciousness, if you will, mindful or mindless, with great intention or with no intention whatsoever, to the impartial and infinite creative mechanism of the universe for its recognition and response. And if you can entertain such an idea, then we're left with only one appropriate question to ask, and that is, for what are we truly praying? If you are new to Unity, if you are newer to Unity, we close this portion of our morning with a time of reflection, a time of meditation, if you will. It will last 4 or 5 minutes. If you're comfortable doing so, you're welcome to close your eyes. You're welcome to place your feet on the floor. Make your body comfortable in whatever way serves you. Let us inject something of an intentionality to this morning's reflection. Understanding that a question sincerely posed will be met with a response. So let's take a deep breath. Let's begin with this intentionality. It goes something like this. I welcome a bigger idea of life this morning. Will you take that with me, please? I welcome a bigger idea of life this morning. And we listen. I welcome a bigger idea of love this morning together. I welcome a bigger idea of love this morning. I welcome a bigger idea of all I know God to be together. I welcome a bigger idea of all I know God to be.
Nanak hosi ve sajan, ad sach, jugad sach, have sach, Nanak hosi ve sach, ad sach, jugad sach, have sach, Nanakahosi besa
And so for all that dances in the soul, for all that inspires the mind, enlivens the hands, for all that informs and inspires, we allow gratitude to rise. We allow gratitude to fill us with its comforting warmth. Into the highest possibilities which would be made manifest through us. We close this time of prayer, this time of meditation, of reflection, by speaking the words, may it be so, may it be so, and so it is.
Thanks again for joining us. Please visit unityinlinwood.org for a preview of all upcoming classes, services, and events, and for an opportunity to make a gift to our community should you so choose. Thank you.